Good morning. This is Sweetie Berry with the Women of Dare Whimsy. We're a group of well-able thinkers and creatives who come together each week to talk about how to live this journey as a gifted woman. This morning, I'm tickled to death to have Dr. Edith Johnston and Miss Sarah Cook with us for the conversation, and we're missing some of our players today, so we hope that they will get well soon and join us. Today's topic is going to be how to fight the winter doldrums, how to fight the glums, the depression that sometimes comes in our lives throughout the year, but particularly this time of the year at winter time. We often see people struggling with depression. We see people struggling with just the glumness of the holidays have just passed, Christmas, Hanukkah, New Year's, Martin Luther King Day. All of those things have just come and gone, and now you're at the end of February, and sometimes the glums come. What can we do to make our daily life better? How do we combat the glums in general? And we're going to hear from our ladies on if they ever face the glums, and if they do, what are their methods of getting out of that space. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's so good to see both of you, and it's so good to have you here today. I know that personally, facing the glums is an annual event for me. I get bored easily. I can easily get into depression or to boredom if I don't take care of myself, if I don't eat correctly, if I don't take care of getting some exercise and moving my body in the sunlight. And I know for me personally that it is a really significant balance of whether I'm eating well, if I'm having enough protein, if I'm having enough things that make my body function well. I'm not a carb girl. I just can't do carbohydrates by itself without significant protein, or I just absolutely stop thinking well. Do you guys ever experience the glums?
Oh yes. it looks like Sarah's come and gone. Here we are. She'll be back. She'll be back. Glums. That low feeling, where you have low energy, your mood just kind of goes into a neutral point of view. Yeah, it happens. And the part of it is that sometimes that, like we said, we just had a lot of hecticness, a lot of excitement, a lot of dynamics, a lot of over the, in December. And that's part of what that's all about, is to help us get through the shorter days and the darker times, and to bring us hope and to bring us excitement. Well, then you've got this little lull that comes in, and sometimes there's that new excitement because it is a new year, but other times you can just kind of go on, oh my goodness, it's still, at least in the northern hemispheres we're looking at, it's still winter time. It's still a time that we need have short days, the less of the sunshine. And so the last week here in at least western Colorado, we have been above freezing. I've been excited. And we've had sunshine instead of cloudy days and snow and stuff like that. And we know from science, and we know personally from our own heartbeats, that sunshine makes a big difference. And to be able to get out again, for me, to walk around and easily and comfortably to walk around and notice things as things begin to change. Things are, there's the melting, the sunsets, the sunshines, and just the way the light goes now, it's changing, and that'll bring it back. But as we look at glooms and we look at that lull, I really end up having to be active and aware of it, because it's just so easy to slide in there and just stay there. And that's the biggest fear for a lot of us, is that we can't climb out. It's a slippery slope to be able to get out. And so being conscientious of the fact that you're there, that awareness that you are there, but it's not a place you have to stay, is a first step. And then, like I said, one of the easiest things is to get some sunshine. That helps a lot of us. But look at what brings you little joys, what brings you that respite. How do you take the time? How do you want to rejuvenate, rekindle the fuel and the fire that you have, because there's times when you're overly excited. But how can you rekindle it now? So sometimes it means curling up in front of a fireplace or a nice warm cuddly blanket with maybe an animal or two and having a good book to read. Just totally escape. Therefore, you're not dealing with what's going on in your life. You're off into a fantasy world, whatever that may be. You may be exploring your next trip around, across the sea or something like that. But you're off so that you can actually take a break and experience the emotions vicariously. but it stimulates your own emotions. Being active in other ways, whether it be exercise, whether it be writing, whether it be journaling, whether it be consciously engaging with other people. I make dates with my grandchildren just because their exuberance as children and their wonder and awe just brings me back to that point, and it helps me to balance. My caution has always been that if I've had a really high and been really busy and really stressful and really geared up, and I go into my lull, part of it is that there's a fear of that lull because, oh goodness, here comes the crash. So again, balancing that out, making conscious choices by being aware to see how can I re-engage in my own life by choice and make that sunshine for me. What other thoughts do you have, sweetie?
Well, I love that your hints on that. And I love absolutely, first of all, that those of us who are in Dare Whimsy just take time to say what is. And what is that we all face times of our year that are tough. We all face times that we are exuberant, and we all face times sometimes that we're crashing. That's part of the high energy that goes with being a creative and a well-able thinker. I also like to bring out the fact that so many times when we're going through a lull or when we're going through the glums, we tend to want to isolate ourselves. And sometimes that isolation is important. To take a few days at home on the couch or watching the fire is great, or to read a book, or just to simply turn off your phone or to turn off Facebook for a few hours or a few days. But I also want to point out that when we get in isolation, it's very easy for us to start listening to negativity and to start believing that, when the phone doesn't ring or when the phone has only, people you don't know on it, that's maybe indicative of something different than what it really is. I always say that isolation brings delusion at some level if there's enough depression in face, because we come into that space of only thinking the negative thoughts without interaction or the side eye from a friend who says, oh, that's not the way it is. We just think you're fabulous, or whatever it is. I watch in the classroom all the time well-able children, teenagers, and young adults who will, through isolation, feel like they're just by themselves and nobody gets them. But the truth is, very many times, their peers are a little stooped by them, and maybe they feel like they're not good enough to be their friend or smart enough to be in relationship with them. And eventually this really terrible miscommunication continues, and people get their feelings hurt, and folks isolate and leave processes because they don't feel like they're enough on either side. And so part of the glums is recognizing that some of this is just simply communication. If things are getting to you, if you're being bothered by something that's not happening or isn't happening, and maybe you're prescribing in your head what they think, we can't tell what other people think. And so the best case scenario is not just to look at their words and not just to look at their actions, but to look at both. And if there are questions, to engage and ask. One of my friends was having a really difficult week this week, and it just felt like she was angry at me. And it really did. By the second or third time, I was pretty glum about that. But I went to her and said, you know what, I'm seeing from your lack of messages, and I'm seeing from your sad face when we talked in person, that maybe you're upset, and it may even be with me. Is there something I have done, or is there something I need to do? And she shook her head and said, oh, girl, it's not even about you. It's about me. And I'm sorry that it implied that I was upset with you. I'm just really overwhelmed with something that's coming up in my life. And then we were able to diffuse that feeling and diffuse that situation. And I think she felt like she was cared for because I reached out. And I know I felt cared for when she let me off the hook for thinking maybe I had upset her. And that's an important part of relationships. And that's part of what runs the glums. I also have noticed, and I bet you have too, isn't it important to know when you're going through changes that part of the release and the excitement of reaching where you're going may also induce the glums of letting go of where you've been. I'm having some really exciting changes in my life and my professional life right now, and it's very thrilling. But there's also a sadness that comes with that, of recognizing that things that are familiar, things that were the way they've been for a while, are going to change. And I find that that kind of glum is a natural part of growth. And it's true for my strategy clients, and it's true for my students, and it's true for myself as I'm going through this season as well. Dr. Edith, can you talk about that? Because there is a powerful change that happens with change. Oh, I see Sarah's back. Fantastic. Let me grab Sarah for a moment and let her have a shot. Sarah, we're talking about glums today and how change can bring that on and how depression can bring that on. Do you ever go through periods or seasons of life where there's a glum in your life? All right, we're not hearing you. Just a second. Let's see if we can figure out why. You're not on mute, so I'm not sure why that's happening. Let me click over to Dr. Johnson, and then we'll come right back to you. All right? All right, Dr. Edith.
Yeah, as we go through changes, there is that loss. There is a loss that we experience, and we need to be able to celebrate that in some ways, and also at the same time realize that even though it may be that we go through the stages of grief in 2 to 5 minutes, and sometimes it may be over several days, and we can't figure out what it is that's causing this unease in us, and it's because we are letting go of something. And when we let go of something, it is a process. And we can revisit it several times. Well, this is the part that I really enjoyed or liked or related to or was comfortable. It may not be anything you really like, but it was comfortable, and it's gone now, or it's changing. It's not the same. And so, yeah, there is that glum, that grief process in letting go of things as we make changes, whether it just be changes in our daily routine, whether it be changes in what our plans for work is, or for our careers, or looking at our businesses, and also just in family dynamics. As other members of the family make their changes, that's a change on us too, and that's an adjustment. And through that adjustment, we can go through the full spectrum of emotions, and we can have that unease, that discomfort, because our routine and what's ordinary changes. And in letting go of that, we can feel a little bit of sadness, and sometimes it can be, more disappointment, but then we do have to look at the flip side of the coin. So this door is closed, and know the door is opening. And so that we can see that bright side again and be able to say, okay, what am I moving forward now to? What am I stepping into? And letting it go, knowing that it hasn't disappeared, it still provides us with experiences, it still provides us with knowledge, it still provides us with information, but we can let go of it. Let go of the past, not have anxiety about the future, and live in the moment and move forward. All right. Can we get Sarah up yet, or are we going to go ahead and have you come back in for a few minutes?
Sure. Let's see if we can hear Sarah yet. Let's try for that. Sarah, is there any chance that we can hear you today?
Oh, now she's off. Okay.
Let me see if there's anything I can see really quickly of why that's happening to her. I really don't see it.
Okay.
All right, I'm apparently going to have to just let that go today and come back to her as she's able to. Technical issues are just real, aren't they? Part of, too, what we really need to be aware of with the glums is that change may not even be something we're processing yet. Sometimes we're feeling discomfort, we're feeling unease, because something is changing, whether it's deep within our spirit or whether it's deep within our subconscious, and it's working its way to the top. So many times the students that I work with, whether they be high schoolers or college kids or entrepreneur students, they'll come in and just almost tense with me as they share about their week. And they've had a good week, they've done some new things. But the process usually brings up the fact that change is change. And even when it's positive change, it requires more energy. It requires sometimes for you to question what's now working that you didn't see before. So many times with entrepreneurs, and particularly women entrepreneurs, I see people coming to learn new skills, and they learn the new skills, and then it's almost as though they get the glums because they didn't figure it out sooner. And I call that need a gentle self-talk. They need gentle self-talk. They, instead of celebrating that they've learned something and engaged to expand themselves, they allow their inner voice to start beating themselves up for not doing it faster, sooner, better, or stronger. We learn when we learn. And sometimes we choose not to learn or not to explore learning, and it costs us. But I encourage you to be where you are, because whatever you did in the past, it really doesn't count today. And what you do tomorrow isn't here yet. So when you have the privilege of being able to comprehend and learn something new that improves your world or gives you a new perspective so that you can improve your world, let's make sure that we congratulate ourselves, because you know the act of learning is a choice. The act of engaging that learning is a choice. And wisdom comes when you're doing both of those things. You know, when we're ready to recognize and have awareness that some things aren't working in our lives, that can be a sad affair. It can be an angry affair sometimes. But when we're able to solidify that what's not working into an identification of what we want to do, whether that be changing our routine or getting more sleep or eating more food or eating less food or doing more exercise, maybe altering our schedule so that it creates more ease in our life and more time with things that we enjoy. Whatever those changes are, they're still changes. And we have to give time to, first of all, identify what is that awareness and to look at the perspective we think will fix it or thinks will change it or affect it. Now, sometimes we think that a certain item enacted may be a solve or a solution, and in fact, it just clarifies what the real problem was, and we can adjust our thinking. That's often true as we go through changes of homes and seasons and lifestyles and income levels. We think that maybe money was the solve. Turns out money just created the opportunity to see what else isn't solved, and that can be depressing or that can bring glum to your life. But also, let's think through the medical things, because sometimes depression is a chemical issue. And sometimes if you've been in, if you've had exhaustion, you're not sleeping at night, sometimes if your chemical balance is out in your own body, there needs to be some medical or psychological intervention, because not everyone can just think happier thoughts and get out of that glum space. And if you've been glum enough, long enough to start thinking about, you know, I'm never going to be different. What I say, the always and nevers are going to come back. They always mistreat me, or I'm always behind, or I never get the laundry done. When those all or nothing statements start coming into play, you might need to check and see how long. Now, for me personally, I had a friend who was a counselor early on say, you keep a planner every day, just put a little face, a happy face on it. Put a happy or a sad or a neutral face and kind of count. And when you have too many unhappy days in a row or wake up unhappy days in a row, then you might want to tune into what you're eating. And if that doesn't solve it with the amount of sleep you're getting, then, you know, pretty quickly you may want to get some help. You may want to get somebody to look and see why you're having an episode of depression. And it may mean that you just need to change what you eat. It may mean you need more exercise. It may mean you need more play in your life, because the glums come when we work too hard too. But there are opportunities also that if you can't solve it with the easy stuff, you can't, you know, put Epsom salt in your bath and have a higher level of magnesium in your life, because that also helps fight depression, then maybe you need to get to a health professional. Dr. Edith, can you help share some of the process that when you know you might need to get some additional help, the things that come up? I know for me and the groups I talk with, I always tell people the moment that you start thinking that it's not worth being here, or you're having suicidal thoughts, or you're having thoughts of isolation that you might should hurt yourself, it's time to get help. It's time to call.
Yeah. Sweetie, you know, it's really important for all of us when we look at having those consistency of glooms, can't seem to see any daylight at all, that everything is just totally blank, just totally blank. We're feeling like there's no end to whatever the issues, problems are. There's no hope. When we have lost hope and meaningfulness in our lives, it can become real critical. And there's many a times when we're feeling that we have become so habitual in presenting ourselves as well-rounded, well-functioning, well-able individuals that we don't want to put upon on anyone else that that's not where we're really at. We've had some sort of experience, whether it be a death in the family, whether it be our own lack of being able to accomplish things, or some sort of mistake that we made. There could be something that triggered it. It could be a trauma, an accident, or whatever. We need to be aware that we do not need to do this alone, and that to reach out is a sign of courage. It's not a sign of helplessness. It actually is a sign of courage, saying yes to life. It's very important that we go ahead and say yes to life and reach out when we hit those points of not feeling like life has any meaning. As we look at the high sensitivity and the high excitability and the potential for anxiety then because of our concerns about all the worlds and everything that we take in, we as high intelligent individuals, high creatives, do have a more significant possibility for experiencing that meaninglessness, that hopelessness, and have suicide and depression tendencies. It's a combination factor, but it's another one of those that are a double-edged sword in the sense that it can be also chemical, as Sweetie mentioned. So it can actually be part of our genetic makeup that we have a propensity toward depression and not being able to see how to move forward, what the joys are in life. Reach out. Take the courage. Know that someone else can go. Science is even proven right now, the studies are coming out, that isolation really is a threat to our health, that it really is a threat to our well-being. So reaching out and letting others know. You don't have to know the why of why you're feeling so down or hopeless or helpless or no meaning. You don't have to know the why. Just reach out and let somebody know that you're feeling that, and reach out for help in family, professionally, and be aware that utilizing the various tools that are available to us, such as medication, can be helpful. It's not maybe the only answer, it's not the ultimate answer, but for some of us it's a big difference. And by having the medication, which then balances the chemical imbalance within the body to a certain degree, or stimulates endorphins so that we can have our natural chemistry to bring and stabilize mood, is very important. Suicide rates and existential depression are very important because they are a high part of those that are high creative and high intelligent, because we feel so much. We take in so much input from around the world. We are so conscientious of the justices and the injustices in the world. And so our hope and lack of meaning for our life encompasses so much more that when we do go into a state of depression, it can be very significant and it can feel like it's bottomless and not be able to climb out. So have just that ounce of courage and reach out and ask someone else to touch you, to be with you. Touch you in the sense of just being there with you. Physical touch is a good process, but it's not exactly what's meant by that word. Being able to reach out to engage just that little tiny bit, to hold on to that thread, is so, so important. You're not the only one, and being alone and being isolated is magnifying what your current experience is. So take a chance and reach out to others. There is those little rays of sunshine that we can come in, and we can use the various tools, whatever it is that you need at that time, to make things work better for you so that you can get out of the glums, whether it be the physiological part of it, whether it be due to the seasons, whether it be due to life experiences or whatever. For we can bring back the smiles and join and be part of life again. Any other comments there, sweetie?
I love your conversations always, particularly on this subject, which is so very important. I personally have had 3 different of my high creative friends commit suicide. I understand that that's a really serious threat, and it's a permanent solution to that temporary problem. But the glums are not always suicidal. Sometimes they're just daily pain. And you know, that's significant too. And so if you're going through a daily chronic system of glums, then it really is time to look at some solution sets. For some of us, that's going to be a change in diet that supports our health. For some of us, it takes a chemical restart from a doctor's prescription to get that system working in your body again. For others, it's a lifelong thing. Just like I wear glasses, there's not a day in Dixie that someone would say to me, oh, if you just tried harder, you could see better. There's some people and there are some individuals, and it's a lot in my family, that you simply can't try harder to be not depressed. It just isn't functional. You maybe can do some things with your diet and with your exercise and with the time you do calisthenics and things to help your large body movement. But at the base of it, if you have a chemical deficiency for balance, there's not a lot you can do to act around that to create health. And so just like I wouldn't leave my glasses at home, I wouldn't leave my antidepressant at home either if that's the situation. Don't buy into the hype that if you just try harder that it'll work out, or if you just stay a little longer away, it may work out. There are times we all need rest. We need to come home after an event. I was just on the road to New York, and I needed at least 2 days after that event to rest. And that's fine. I had a friend recently who came and they said, I just needed to be where I am because I could not rest at home, and being in the hotel allowed me to have a few days rest to kind of gather myself again. That's a very different thing. And if rest in a couple of days makes you feel rejuvenated, makes you feel re-energized, and the glums get better and you're sleeping better at night, that's exactly what you needed. But if you're getting into day 4, 5, and 6, you're not wanting to get off that couch, you're not wanting to leave your bed, or if you're going, you're just really dragging yourself through the day, that's a very different thing. And it could be something as very simple as watching the sugar you eat. And it can be something as very simple as getting more natural daylight into your life and more physical time outside. And it can be something as complex as your body's not producing the chemicals to stay balanced, and you may need some help with that. This week, we've been talking about how glumness comes into our life and what do we do to handle that. And I'll say just some quick fixes on the way out. Sarah and I spend a lot of our time making sure during conversations during the week that we are checking in with 5-minute miracles, is what we call them. Do we have breaks in our day? Are we taking time for self-care? Do we have a list because we're both visual people, so we like lists. So we like a list on the side of the computer or on our planner that says, if I have 15 minutes, what could I do? If I have 10 minutes, what could I do? If I have 5 minutes, what can I do? To re-engage and to interrupt the working all the time mode, because creativity is also a part of our schematic. If I'm not creating, I get depressed. It's just the way it is. I can either create productions, I can create color pages, I can create drawings, but I need to create a significant amount of time a week, or that alone gives me the glums, and I bet a lot of you are that way too. Each week, we're here on Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Central Time. We have the archives on our website at darewhimsy.com. That's darewhimsy.com. We look forward to being with you each week. Dr. Edith, can you give us one? Oops, I think Dr. Edith had the slide out. So I want to just close this up today, and I'll look forward to seeing you next week on Wednesday at 10 a.m. Thanks for being with us. Bye-bye.